Okay, so here we are. Welcome back to the Former Athlete Society. As always, I am Adam Ringler, and we have our accountability call, right? I host this accountability call every single Tuesday and Thursday. Tuesday, accountability calls. Thursdays, we end up doing a question and answer call. And whether you're jumping into it live, again, I try to just make this for this community. So if you're part of the Former Athlete Society, you can subscribe live. You get access to our live calls. If you're watching a replay on YouTube, then that's most likely why you're here, right? You're probably watching it on the replay on the live stream that we have going on here. But nonetheless, every piece of content here is about committing to rebuilding the discipline and probably the consistency that you once had during your college days. And that alone tells me that you're still an athlete at heart. So I put together 5 fresh, practical habits, tactics, really real world stuff that you can actually start to use today to sharpen your performance, your health, and your lifestyle, right? All of those things. So I want to unpack all of these today and break them down into a really simple thing that you can actually use to take some action, right? And so that said, before I jump into it, there's a couple spots I need to end up plugging here. AdamRingler.com on our social media. You can jump over there. You can find some content. I try to post updates in there all the time. And then most likely, this is the number one place, this website, AdamRingler.com. Head over there, check it out. You can subscribe to the Former Athlete Society on that. So first thing I want to jump into is why general stretching, even at night, why you might want to start with attacking your hamstrings, right? And I share this with our athletes all the time, that hamstring tightness, right? Tight hamstrings sneak up and really messes with the pelvic alignment. It tugs on your low back, kind of cranks up the risk of pain. And for me, I learned this early in my strength coach career, watching athletes with lumbar spine flare-ups, right? We lean heavily on sort of Gray Cook's joint by joint approach model and the Janda's upper and lower cross patterns. So if you think of like a chain reaction, that the tight hamstrings typically pulls on the pelvis, that misaligns the lumbar spine, and suddenly you're hobbling around feeling super creaky, right? And it's subtle at first. Like you might, I'll blame this on my old knees or things like that. But it builds up over time, day by day. So one of the things I often recommend, how to actually stretch, right? Typically, I try to stretch, for me, this is just, N of 1, I try to stretch at night. I find doing it shifts me from a somewhat of a sympathetic nervous state into a parasympathetic, that sort of rest and digest moment. Do it sometimes playing with my children, or I'm on the floor, I'm talking with my wife, and I'm kicking my legs up. I'm doing all this sort of active stretching when I'm just would normally be passing time, right? You could start seated on a floor or on a couch, one leg extended out forward, doing some ankle sweeps, things like that. But stretch only as far as it feels comfortable, right? Hold for 30 seconds, breathe, really try to focus on some diaphragmatic breathing. And really also one of the cheats I often use is really trying to press the heel down and feel that press, and that sort of, you'll feel the tension start to go through that pelvis. And that pelvis drop often helps unwind really tight hip flexors too. And so those tight hip flexors sort of tag team with your hamstrings, and that can create a really bad situation, right? Do both legs, stand up, rock around, get some gentle motion throughout the body. Maybe go for like a knee to chest to, again, loosen your low back. This 5 to 7 minute sequence can relieve a ton of stress going into your bedtime routine. I've often found that as just an easy way of alleviating some of the pain. My body loves it when I do it. It feels great. But again, a lot of trainers call this sort of corrective mobility exercises, right? But one of the things I think stretching does is not only does it increase the tissue extensibility, but it's typically a low time cost, high return type of thing, right? So when you struggle with low back tension, giving this a shot, even if a one-off in the afternoons, typically your body will thank you, right? So try it for a week, check, did you, when you were sitting on your couch Like, did your back actually feel better? For me, I'm getting a little bit older. I notice all the little aches and pains in my body. My low back sometimes flares up from probably sitting or actually probably training my posterior chain as aggressively as I do and some of the conditioning I do. But again, anytime I do, I'm actively trying to stretch out my hamstrings. I'm doing some core work, and then I'm making sure that my pelvis is actually aligned and doing well there. I want to shift gears a little bit, but before I do, I just wanted to end up throwing this out here. I have obviously this YouTube channel. You guys are subscribed to it. You can check it out right here. I'm trying to get some of these numbers up. So like, subscribe, do all the things, hit the bell, be part of our notifications community so that you get access to these videos when they drop. I would like that so very much. So I would hope that you could do that for us. And then really moving on is just a hack that I wanted to share, something I've been doing quite a bit. And I call this a protein hack. I don't know if it's really truly, I didn't invent it by any means. Bodybuilders have been doing this for a while. But oftentimes I see former athletes who underconsume protein. And it's probably done between meals because, quite frankly, they'll get some protein at meals. But when you sum up all of the grams of protein throughout their day, it's actually undershooting their target. And so one of the things, like, and I get it, like as a former athlete, as a busy professional, like you get busy with work and your meals stretch out and meals start saying, hey, where'd the food go? Where's the protein in this? And that's where these sort of late day snacks can kind of come in play. So before I used to work with athletes who, as like wrestlers back at Michigan State, and we needed to really make sure that there was some lower caloric dense foods, but also still packing a punch when it comes to protein. So we need to find a way to have these micro wins to patch up gaps where they actually need some of the protein to maintain their muscle mass, but done so in a way. And so this is where I like this hack. And it is essentially, it's sugar-free whipped cream, 1 or 2 tablespoons. It almost has very, very low calories there. And then a scoop of protein powder. And I typically use like a whey. You could use casein, vegan protein. That's more user dependent, right? But swirl it up. You might take a couple drops of water to get a little bit more liquefied. You can whisk it, really whisk. And then you have a 20-gram protein snack, really. It's light, super satisfying, no baking, no cooking required. You can flavor it with some cinnamon on top. Oh my goodness, I love that. Some cocoa. You can put berries in it if you really want to. It takes 10 seconds to prep this meal. And it's super easily digestible and it doesn't wreak havoc on your macros, right? And so I love that, right? Nutritional science tells us that we need 20 to 30 grams of protein per feeding to maximize muscle synthesis, protein synthesis. So that snack really hits the target. Plus, it's super low calorie too, right? So if you're trying to refine your body composition, it's a solid macro-friendly type of cheat. And so there's a lot of us that are, other strength coaches I talk with on a daily basis. They still text me about this trick. They say, man, this protein fluff saved me on my road trip. I could find whipped cream in the grocery store or in a gas station. I had some protein powder and I made this protein mousse. So super easy hack to try to get some extra protein in your macros. Now, that said, again, just as a reminder for those that might be jumping in, every single video my lights go off. For you guys that are jumping into our live calls, my name's Adam Ringler. I've been a strength and conditioning coach for nearly 20 years at this rate. This is what my full-time job is. But I'm trying to take some of the concepts of strength conditioning and nutrition and lifestyle and all of these things and apply them to a population that's maybe exhausted their eligibility, that wants to get back into shape. And that's what we call the Former Athlete Society. So moving on to the next thing, right? Saunas. I love saunas. I've talked about it on our show before, and I want to kind of dive into the idea of infrared sauna usage, whether it's at home or visiting a commercial sauna, heat therapy, the benefits of what it is. So I first came across this with endurance athletes, rarely or weirdly enough, and that sauna use post training not only increases the sweating capacity, improves heart rate variability, right? It helped with anti-inflammatory markers from a chemical standpoint. And the science seemed to actually suggest and points to mitochondrial biogenesis. So basically, your cells' energy factories get stronger. And how cool is that we actually get some real world application out of it, right? So, what I would recommend this very tactical in this accountability call, block out 2 15-minute sessions, at least 15 minutes, twice a week, right? So it could be one after a workout, could be an evening relax. Stay hydrated when you do it, right? Bring in some water. Let's make sure that we're staying hydrated on that. And then what you'll find is your core body temperature will increase, whether you're using a Garmin or an Apple Watch. You can track all of those things. And when you're done, if you really want a bonus, pair it with a cold plunge or a cold shower or something like that. You will feel like $1,000,000 when you do those things. Your body will fall in love and thank you for doing this work. Now, it's kind of like what I love about the hot cold contrast is that it sets up this sort of thing where you get this both benefit of cold water immersion with heat immersion, and you get the best benefit out of utilizing both. It just simply works. It's great. So what would you feel with this, right? If you've never done an infrared sauna or something like that, for me, after a few weeks, right, I sleep like a baby. My sleep quality improves. Like I said, my resting heart rate variability has improved, which is awesome for me. The people that I recommend this with told me that their mood improved. So, shout out to cortisol regulation and circulation. I had a Midwestern athlete who went from feeling like gravel every morning to literally waking up ready and feeling great. And it wasn't because he was doing his training. It was really just the addition of doing a little bit more heat therapy, which is a huge benefit, right? Topic number 4 I wanted to talk about today is collagen. I freaking love collagen. I think it matters specifically as you get older. I did a whole show just recently on tendon health, and I talked about vitamin C and collagen, gelatin supplementation, and sort of the weird sort of nutrient sort of collagen matrix that you could create in your body to then, in conjunction with rehabilitation programs, isos, eccentrics, and then dynamic effort or dynamic pogos and dynamic movement, things like that from a tissue standpoint. But our bodies produce, when we get older, right, post eligibility age, our bodies produce less collagen, which means that we have a slower ramping tendons for us. And typically we'll see more nagging stuff. So things like Achilles or patella or rotator cuff tendinopathies start to creep up with age, right? As we're starting, I picked up a football once and I was throwing in my backyard to my daughter who loves to throw the football around. And my shoulder was so sore the next day. These are things that collagen can actually help us. Starve off some of the tendinitis, right? But studies show that actually supplementing with collagen, so anywhere from 15 to 20 grams per day, can actually help tendon remodeling when combined with light loading. So the loading is actually really necessary component of doing all of that. So what do? 15 to 20 grams scoop is part of, for me, I have a Yeti bottle over there. I put in my Yeti bottle. I put some flavoring electrolyte mix in it, and that's what I'm drinking, right? And just making that a part of my routine, but making it anywhere from 30 to 60 minutes, 30 preferably, 30 minutes pre-activity where you're going to actually utilize that joint has seemed to have some beneficial effects to collagen loading in that area. So I did a deep dive. Again, I won't go into it, but I did deep dive video on all of those things just a few days ago. So somewhere in this video, I'll link it down below. So check that out. I know this is a live stream, so it may pop up. But again, you can find that video. I posted a bunch of things on my Instagram. But again, adamringler.com, you'll find the tendon video. It's probably on the front page for sure. So what can we do? Like real world examples of collagen supplementation. Well, one instance, I had an ex-guard who was dealing with some tendon pain and went from literally daily knee ache to trainable three times a week of real great quality practices, right? And we're talking games as well. And then what they did was just daily collagen powder. And they did that. They did a targeted rehabilitation program that involved isometrics, like I talked about, some eccentric work, some Spanish squats where you loaded the tendon. It didn't happen overnight, but it did happen reliably, right? And the pain dropped. The tendons, like I said in the video, the tendons aren't muscles. They need constant stimulus and building blocks. And that's what that collagen supplementation combined with some loading actually does. So you can really supercharge the rehabilitation programs that you've been doing. Last topic for our accountability call, and that's about accountability. And this is the nature of our calls, our Tuesday calls, right? Social accountability matters, right? Teams have taught us to show up because your effort impacts somebody else. And that's just not psychology. It's actually behavioral economics. When you make it public, you make it social, folks often comply more. And this matters even more once your off season is removed from the structure of your day. So how can somebody like us who's post eligibility exhausted it, right? We're now chasing the glory days of our playing days. How can we get that back? Well, you can send a text message to a buddy and you can just say, hey, this Saturday morning, I'm going for a run or I'm going to go to X gym. I want you to meet me there. Hey, we got a trail run at 7 a.m. Meet me at the trailhead, right? Make it real. Put it on a calendar. Make an invite. Send the invite to people. When you do that, you'll show up because other people are counting on you to show up. I still do this. I call it commitment anchoring, and it forces me and others to hold the line, right? And it's such a powerful hack. I tested this on the Former Athlete Society and other people that's in our membership group here, and a few of them said that, they, right after they joined, even after having several bad days, they would still go back because their friends were there and counting on them. I had a former athlete also tell me that it added 30 minutes of meaningful training to their week just by knowing that there was somebody that was counting on them to do it. So it could be GroupMe, daily text, Slack messages. We use Slack all the time with some of the coaches I work with. And, you can really supercharge progress. And whether or not you live across the country or in different regions or time zones, things like that, helps keep everybody accountable. So trying to pull this all together, right? Just to wrap this up in something that's maybe a little bit more clean. Do those hamstring stretches before bed today. Try that out. Tomorrow afternoon, try the protein fluff, a little bit of whipped cream, a little protein powder. Find time to get some collagen in your supplementation routine, especially if you're dealing with some aching tendonitis, things like that. See if somewhere in your area you have access to a infrared sauna and start to work or incorporate some sauna sessions into your routine. And then before we finish, right now, right after this video, text a buddy, text a friend, set up a weekend run, a weekend ruck, some type of lift, and get that commitment on the books. You owe it to yourself to do that. If you got anything from this, comment below like you've always done, and share it with our community. That micro action creates macro momentum. So as always, everybody, I appreciate you. Thank you so much for joining this accountability call. Until next time, stay strong, keep training, get after it. I'll see you then.